This is a story of a very beautiful piece of architecture that, although is so extremely beautiful, the sole purpose of it is to deal with a very nasty disease known as Alzheimer's. The client whose purpose for the design was to have a dwelling that was connected to the landscape and also provided ample amount of light also needed a very important reason for this design. They recently were diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and so they needed to have a home that would be able to adapt to their needs. This is because in the nature of the disease, there needs to be a constant change and adaptation to the needs of the person, and the idea was for the architecture to be there in support of that. Now, when looking at plan, one of the biggest gestures is the organization of the floor plan. You'll notice that it's a simple cross plan running vertically here in the center, and then the other one running horizontally. The idea behind this is to allow simple circulation to the space, not having to create a maze for the users to get eventually lost in or have troubles navigating through the plan. One of the axes, the vertical one that I showed you in plan, is this shot right here, and you can tell how tremendously beautiful this shot is. The other axis, which is the longest path of circulation in the project, is this shot right here. Again, tremendously beautiful. And you can see that there's this skylight that's about 90 feet long that runs across this whole entire axis. Not only does that add beauty to it, but it adds an ample amount of natural indirect sunlight that just completely transforms the space and allows for the users of the space to carry on their activities without having the dimly lit environment, which makes everything harder to deal with. Over here at the end is the garage of the house, which from the exterior looks like this, and from the interior looks like this. Again, it's all about allowing natural light to come in, but the also important thing about this detail is that it's all on the same level. There's no inconsistencies with the floor plan, so whenever there's a need for wheelchair accessibility, there's not going to be any ramps or stairs to deal with. Everything's just on one flat plane. Now, on the opposite side of this house is the fireplace, which can be seen all the way from the garage, from the kitchen, and this is what that space looks like. I mean, it's just gorgeous. I gotta tell you, its simplicity, it makes it one of the most beautiful fireplaces that I've ever seen designed. Now, this material, this veneer that covers the fireplace, is called bluestone. It's regional, and it's part of the materials that were chosen from the area that just anchors this to the site. Other materials include cedar, which is naturally rot resistant and insect resistant. They also use reclaimed heartwood pine that was used in the flooring, and local white pine, which clads the ceiling. So again, the materiality here has two purposes. One, to use materials that are local to the area or native to the area, which makes it a little bit more sustainable, but also the material palette is sort of calming and soothing. Another benefit to having this simple cross plan, besides its ease of navigation, is also the fact that they added operable windows here at the bottom and in other parts of the house, which makes cross ventilation possible in this home. So they can open up all the windows and just allow a natural breeze of air coming through the space. So you have natural light filling the space, you have natural air going inside all of the spaces, and then you have views at all times to the exterior, to this beautiful landscape. All of these which just make people feel better in general, which also can help out with the treatment of this disease. Another detail is that the workspaces, the counters that are part of the project, are designed at a lower level. Again, to allow for future adaptation of wheelchair use, which unfortunately will be needed in the future. And you can see this really cool sketch that they thought about aligning the line of sight with nature at all times. So it doesn't matter if you're walking, you're standing, you're sitting, you're always going to be connected to the exterior. Finally, all corridors in this space are enlarged again for wheelchair accessibility, and the primary bedrooms have two entry points, which make it easier in case of some sort of emergency someone needs to rush into the room to help. Architecturally speaking, two details that I love so much about this project are the way that the fireplace pokes out of the home, and then the way that this material over here connects to the glass and to the structure of the house. It's all extremely beautiful. Not to mention in moments like this, where your openings are centered and aligned with the rafters above. Believe me, details like this require a lot of thought, and they don't just happen randomly. To be honest with you, I think this project is such a great example of how architecture can not only be beautiful and how it can demonstrate all this thought that the architects put into it, but that can also serve a purpose, very important purpose that in this case allows the architecture to adapt to the needs of the users. There's always this debate, this question as to what is good architecture, and sometimes we're kind of tricked into believing that good architecture is either flashy, or it's a really cool aesthetic, or it's historical. Like it can only be one of those three before it's considered good architecture. But this project right here is so powerful, and it's such a great example at showing you how contemporary architecture could be good. And it's not good because it's aesthetically pleasing, although it is, but because it takes a problem, it takes this debilitating disease that basically requires the architecture to adapt. And it doesn't get all funky with technology, moving parts, and none of that. Not that that's bad, but it just relies solely on the architecture. It relies solely on the light quality, on the air quality, on the views, on the different details that allow that transformation of the architecture to take place. That is what good architecture is. This is what good architecture is. This is a tremendously beautiful project, and honestly, I consider it one of my favorite pieces of architecture in recent memory.